Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Invitation to Puzzles. Today, we're going to be taking a look at a Yajilin. This puzzle is by dumediat, and so there's a few different common flavors of pencil puzzle, as well as a bunch of weird ones. One of the most common flavors of pencil puzzle is loop puzzle, so a puzzle where you have to draw some sort of closed loop through some amount of cells. And so the rules of Yajilin are that you have to draw a loop through the grid. The loop's always, in just about all the puzzles, as always, there's exceptions to everything because there's so many pencil puzzle genres. But just about all the genres, your loops have to move horizontally and vertically through the centers of cells. And there are some clues in the grid, and the clues in the grid, you can't move the loop through. So the loop can't go through this too. And you'll see if you click the link here, and you try to play this puzzle, you won't be able to do that. Now, also in Yajilin, you have to shade every cell that you don't put on the loop, except the clued ones. You can't shade these. The player will let you toggle them to denote whether you've used them or not. But you have to shade cells that you don't use. And so basically, you're going to shade some cells, and you're going to put a loop through every other cell except the shaded cells and the clued cells. And the central piece of Yajilin that makes Yajilin is that you can't put the two shaded cells next to each other. Now, surprisingly to me, actually, Puzzlink will let you, but you're not allowed to in the rules. Your shaded cells can't touch. So in other words, if I make this shaded, then I have to put loop here, because this can't also be shaded. And you might notice that there's a problem with that. Now, the clues in the grid, in addition to being sort of things that you're not allowed to go through with the loop, they tell you how many shaded cells they're looking at. So this 3 is looking at 3 shaded cells across this row. This 3 is looking at 3 shaded cells across here, and so on. Okay, and so those are the rules that determine a Yajilin puzzle. And so let's get started solving it, but there's a link in the description in case you want to solve it yourself. This is a genre I solve a fairly large amount, so I'm hoping I can say something standard about it and not break it horribly. So let's get started with dead ends, which are the most important sort of aspect of a lot of loop puzzles, is that I could never do this, for example. Because if I do this, remember I have to put loop here, and I can draw that piece of loop segment. But notice now this loop has nowhere to go, and it's not a loop, it's a dead end. So it becomes a snake instead of a loop. And so anything you can do that would cause there to be a dead end, you just can't. And so the thing I showed you is one thing. You just can't do that. But even actually this is already bad, because now remember in a Yajilin puzzle, you have to put loop next to a shaded cell because the shaded cells can't be next to each other. And I need a shaded cell, a clue, or loop in every cell. And so this immediately creates a dead end. And so what the solver lets you do is it lets you put a little dot in a cell. And all this dot indicates is this cell is not shaded. Because if I shaded this cell, I would immediately create a dead end. And so if you want, there's a bunch of cells where that's true. And if you want to take a pause and make sure you understand everything, you can pause and try and find as many cells as you can in the grid where it would immediately create a dead end if you shaded them. And this is just right click in Puzzlink. Okay, so 3, 2, 1, and I'll show you some of them. Corners always have this. So if you have a corner, as long as it's an unclued corner, the clued corner we'll handle in a second, they always have this sort of pattern. So I'll go ahead and do those. This corner is a little bit different because I could actually shade this and it would be okay, because I don't have to put loop here because I actually can't put loop here. So that's fine. But actually this cell is bad. If I shade this cell, now this becomes a dead end. So actually that and that actually both are unshadable. And now actually, if you look around clues all the way around the border, there's actually several other spots. Like this I cannot shade because it would create a dead end here. This I cannot shade because it would create a dead end there. This I can't shade because it would create a dead end there. And this I can't shade because it would create a dead end there. And that. Okay, now you might be thinking, okay, so that's going to be all of them, but actually there's a few more that you can spot if you want. So for example, here, if I shade this cell, it actually creates a dead end here now. That has to do that, and it can't. So that's not that. And this one here, if you look at that, those two would do the same thing. They would create a dead end in this cell. Okay, and you can actually do the same thing with this. This can't be shaded because it would create a dead end there. So I can create a couple dots over there. And likewise, that would create, in fact, two dead ends. That would create a dead end there. 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 Okay, that might be all the low-hanging fruit for these. And you don't have to mark all of these, but I just wanted to sort of highlight one of the key points of logic that you're going to see in a lot of Yajilin puzzles is that sort of freebie. Okay. Now, another thing that you're going to be looking for a lot when you're solving any kind of loop puzzle are corners and corridors. And so those are basically places that are on the loop that only actually connect to two other cells. So for example, this is a corner. It's literally in the corner and it's on the loop. And the thing about a loop is every cell on a loop connects to two cells. And so in this case, what are those two cells? Well, it's definitely that one and that one. Okay. Likewise, this is a corner. What are those two cells that it connects to? It's that one and that one. Okay. Now, this cell is also a corner. It connects left, but it can't connect into the clue. So actually it connects there. And likewise, that one connects there. Now, here's another concern in loop puzzles that you're going to see a lot, is that you're going to sort of have to avoid the possibility that you actually close the loop too soon. So I can't have my loop be this little 4-cell loop because this piece needs to be on the loop. And I would need basically to shade everything else if I did that. So I can't do that. So basically that means I just can't connect these. And if you want to mark places that you can't connect, then one of the ways you can do that is you can right-click a border, and that'll put a little X there. I like that feature. And so now this is what I call a corridor. It has two places. This cell only has two places it can connect to once I realize it can't connect here. And so therefore it connects up and down. So the only difference, I sometimes will call this a corner anyway, but the only difference between a corner and corridor is whether the two sides are next to each other or opposite each other. Okay, and then conveniently, this has now become a corridor, or sorry, this has become a corner. Okay, and now I need to avoid closing this loop. And so that has made this a corner, and so that connects over there. And likewise, I can do a little bit of that here. This cell can't connect there, so it has to go that way, and that makes that a corridor. Okay. So, so those are the two biggest things that you should scan for in any sort of loop puzzle are corners and corridors and closing the loop. So corners and corridors I'm counting as one thing because they're both cells that only connect to two things. And the other is closing the loop, which is easy to check for when your loop is this big, but it can be very easy to miss when you've filled in a lot of the grid and it's not clear because you'd make a giant loop. Now, if you want PuzzLink specifically, one of the things I like about it is it has this button that is up. It's right above the timer here that says color each line. And that will show you that this can't be connected and this can't be connected. I'll try and remember to show you that when we're further into the puzzle, if you would like. Okay, so Now, this is a Yajilin puzzle specifically, and so we have to actually at some point use the clues. And so when you're looking at clues, what you're looking for usually is you're looking for clues where it's pointing at it's a high number pointing at a low number of cells that could possibly be chosen. So for example, this 2 is pointing at, and remember the green dot means that there is nothing, or sorry, means it's not shaded. So 2 of these 3 cells are shaded. Okay. And one of the things you're going to see a lot is what I like to call the 2 out of 3 rule, which is if I need to shade 2 of 3 things and I can say it's not these 2, then I know this one has to be shaded. So if I'm looking to do 2 out of 3 things and I can show you not these 2, then I know I have to pick the other one. Because if I don't pick this one, let's just imagine the world where this wasn't shaded, I'd have to shade these 2. Now, why can't I pick these 2? It's because it creates a dead end here, and then this little loop stops being a loop. So again, not these 2 means I have to shade this one. Or if you prefer, if I don't shade this one, then I have to shade those 2 and that breaks. Okay, so that's shaded. Okay, now for free, as soon as you shade a cell, you get to put a dot next to every cell that it touches. But unfortunately, in this case, that is no cells. But it does create a corner here. And so I get to extend this corner over here. Now, I can do a similar calculation with this 3 down here. And I can look at where these 3 cells are going. And I don't think I can tell you exactly where they go yet, but I can certainly tell you where 2 of them go. And so if you want to think through the same logic that we just did, you can pause for a second and try and figure out, okay, what cells do I know out of this row are shaded? And I'll give you a moment to think about that again. Okay, so here's how I'm thinking about this again. So basically, there's 3 pieces that I could put a shaded cell. I can put a shaded cell here, I can put shaded cells here, and I can put one here. Okay. I can certainly put at most one shaded cell here. I can certainly put at most one shaded cell here. But because of the same thing we did above, I can also put at most one shaded cell in this gap, because remember, shaded cells can't touch. I can't do that. But they also can't be 1 apart along a border, because if they're 1 apart along a border, then the effect that has is to create a dead end, and we don't want to do that. Okay, and so if I get at most 1 shaded cell here, then I need 2 more shaded cells, which means I have to shade that cell and I have to shade that cell. And you'll notice this flow happens a lot of, okay, now that I've placed that couple of shaded cells, now suddenly I've got some more corners. Namely, all of those things became corners. And now don't forget, once you've actually filled in some information, that in fact now this 3 clue only has 1 cell to get its 3rd cell from. In fact, if you want, I could have said before I can't shade this cell because it would have been too close to that, but that just got handled by this corner. Okay, so this comes out like that, this comes out like that, because of these corners here. Okay, I know these 2 can't join, at the very least. So what am I looking for now is a good question. I know one of these 2 is going to have to be shaded. I know these can't connect, of course, because if these connect, that creates a mini loop. We don't want to create a mini loop. So let me introduce you to another little bit of notation that I like to use in these puzzles, which is, I showed you the X, which just means these things don't connect. I'm going to also say I can put an X here. And the reason I can put an X here is because I know one of these 2 is shaded. And so what I'm saying is I can't do that, because then I can't shade either of them. So I can put a little X here because of that. One of these 2 shaded. I don't know which one, but whichever one it is, it's going to create an X there. And I can also do that here. Because, again, one of these two is shaded by this one clue. Whichever one it is going to make it so that I can't draw a line straight across there. And that potentially could be useful. I'm trying to decide if I think it's useful. Yes, I think it is useful. And it's useful because it's let me see a different thing that is also relevant, which is that I can't actually shade this cell. And let me show you why I can't shade this cell. Namely, if I shade this cell, then I'm obligated to put in this path like this. Okay, that all looks fine, but remember this cell's also obligated to be something, and so it has to do that. Well, that's not a loop anymore, that's branching, and you don't get to do that unless you do a fancy puzzle called a U-Bahn or something like that. So we're going to unwind all of that. This can't actually be shaded. And that's what I usually call a T. If you do that, you create a T. And so you have to avoid anything that would create a T is one of the sort of things to think about in loop puzzles. Okay, and so in particular, shading this would create a T, so that's not shaded. So this is shaded, because again, I needed one of them to be shaded. And you'll see this by default will gray out a clue once it's satisfied. And so this is the classic loop puzzle corridor. This cell can't go up and it can't go down, so it only connects straight through. And now here's a cell. And so here's a different way of thinking about dead ends. Remember, a dead end is a place that if you go into, you can't leave. Well, this cell now is a dead end, and loops can't have dead ends. And what that means is this cell has to be shaded, because if this cell was not shaded, then you would have a dead end. And so we get that. And so that creates a corner with another corner. Now this loop can't close, so that goes up like that. And this one clue now is forced to do that. Remember, you can immediately sort of dot cells next to clue or next to shaded cells. And so we get to sort of chain this again. There's my corner. Now, this cell, which remember we can dot because it's next to a shaded cell, it's now a corner. And so when I do that and I fill it in, it does that. And this cell is now a corner. And so one of the things you're scanning for when you're doing loop puzzles is you're scanning for any cell that actually is itself a corner, because they don't always sort of leap out at you as loudly as you might think. They definitely will sort of tend to hide if you're not careful. Okay, so what else are we doing here? So here's a fancy version of the thing we were doing with the X's. So one of the things I can do is I can just put an X here. I don't think this immediately tells me anything, but I can put an X here because I need 2 shaded cells in this column. But the thing that I saw that does let me do something is this 3 clue here. Will tell me there's 3 shaded cells in here, and this is a run of 6 cells that these 3 could fit in. There's no shaded cells already in the row. Okay. And so actually, because I can shade at most one of these 2 cells, at most one of these 2 cells, and at most one of these 2 cells, I need to shade one of these 2, one of these 2, and one of these 2, which means I actually can put X's through this row like this. Okay. Now, do be careful when you look at this. that this is not an X everywhere. This is only an X every pair of cells, because every pair of cells needs to contain one needs to contain a shaded cell. Notably, I could do that. That's just fine. It would just force that. But that's a perfectly fine way to put 3 loop segments into the row. So you get X's, but notice don't go hog wild with the X's. Okay. Now, the reason why I said that that was worth marking is that it's now revealed that this cell is a dead end now. This cell can't connect that way, can't connect that way, and can't connect that way. So this is a cell that can only connect in one direction. So therefore, it must be shaded. That cell's not shaded, and this comes out over here. Okay, so that seems helpful, potentially. Now, what else have we? Let's see. This 2, if you scan it, still has a little bit of wiggle room. This 2 still has a little bit of wiggle room. This looks fine. Let's see. Okay. What else have we here? So one other thing I see in this row, I'm not sure how immediately useful this is going to be, is I'm definitely shading this cell or this cell, because this 2 requires 2 shaded cells. And so because of that, this cell is always connecting down. Okay. And this is actually the same 2 of 3 rule again, just phrased slightly differently. Because what I'm saying here is I can't connect this both left and right. If I connect it both left and right, it becomes impossible to make this 2 happy. And so if I can't connect it both left and right, that means I always connect it down, because the only 3 ways it can go are left, right, and down. It can't go up because that's not an option. Okay. What else do I see hanging around here that might reveal something to us? Let's see. I see a couple weirder things. I see that I can't shade... there we go. Okay, this is... Oh, no, that doesn't work. No, sorry. I see that I can't shade this cell, at least, is a thing that I can look for, because if I shade this cell, it makes a dead end here. Basically, this cell is potentially a dead end, and so it's either a dead end or it connects in both directions. Those are the only 2 options. And so I can't shade a cell next to a cell like that, basically. Is the way... I think it's Selena that always says that, one of the people in my chat who helps when I'm solving puzzles. Okay, what else am I trying to do? I'm trying not to do anything too fancy here, if I can avoid it. Like, for example, I see I can't shade this cell, but I don't see that it does anything. Let's see, if this connects underneath, is that okay? It seems fine. Yeah, this seems fine. I don't have any clues that are satisfied yet. This 2 is close, but not... Currently, this 2 has 5 cells in which I could place shaded cells, and this 2 has 5 cells in which I could place shaded cells. Trying to decide if there's something with the crossing there, but I don't think so. Let's see. Okay, so these do go together. Okay, so here's the thing I saw before that I'll point out is just a sort of useful thing to look at. And by the way, if you want in Puzzlink, if you want to sort of visualize what something would look like, there's this button at the bottom called Trial Mode, which will let you basically just place something here. And so if you imagine what the world looks like if you do shade this cell, it gets gnarly quickly. And the reason why it gets gnarly quickly is because, remember, one of these two is shaded because of the 3, and it's no longer that one, so it's that one. But now my loop end here has collapsed. So that doesn't work. And so you can then hit a button called Reject Trial, which will basically go back to where you first put in the thing. If you want, you can think of it as like basically guessing, but I don't really think of it that way myself. It's more just for sort of like trying to visualize, and especially useful if you're trying to communicate something. But if you're trying to say like what would it actually look like if this cell were to do this, is a useful exercise to say. Okay, but I am. Oh. Well, I see another thing that is should have perhaps been apparent to me a bit ago, because it's not that simple actually. But this can't happen. I put this in trial mode again just to highlight what I'm showing you can't happen. If I do this, then it forces that because I can't close the loop. So that's no good. So I can't connect there, and if I can't connect there, that gets me a little X, which gets me a little bit of loop over there. Okay, now. Oh, that still did not quite get me enough of that to tell me exactly what is happening. Let's see. Okay, so this 2, we recall, is a little bit off. Okay, I'm squinting for other quick violations of sort of the 2 out of 3 rule. Oh, I see. This cell now can't be shaded because of what it would do to this spot. So this is a potential corner. In the sense that this is either a corner or it's shaded. And so I can't possibly shade this cell because if I do, now it's a dead end that's next to a shaded cell, and that doesn't work. So this cell needs that freedom to either be shaded or a corner, which means this cell is unshadable. And again, just to sort of show you what happens if I do shade this cell, now this cell's unshaded and I dead end into it right away. So this cell is not shaded. So that cell is shaded by the 2, and that lets me do this. Again, I can't close the loop. If I close the loop, bad things happen. And again, I can't close the loop because this would have to go up, and that's not allowed. And now I have a really nice pattern of this 2 looking right. I need to shade 2 cells, and actually the only 2 I can feasibly shade are those 2. Because I can't shade 2 next to each other. If I shaded the one in the middle, immediately I would not be able to shade either of the ones next to it. Okay, so again, immediately next to shaded cells, you get cells that are not shaded. And so this becomes a corridor. This is also a corridor, so we get all of that for... Well, I was going to say free, but free is overstating. We get all of that for, I guess, not much more than the price we paid for it. And now this cell is a corner. And now this cell is a corner. And now that's in a corner. And now this only has one direction, so this is a corridor that gets pushed like that. Sorry, I went one step too far over there. This is now a dead end. So it's shaded, which forces this across here, which then makes that be shaded, makes this a corner. And now this goes down like that. So we have made some additional progress. Also, this 2 clue has come into happiness because now we can also shade, or sorry, we can also X that because we need one of these two to be the last shaded cell up here. And I said that would be useful. And maybe that was a lie. Might have been a lie. Okay. I've still got this 3 sitting here, sort of threateningly. Now, I mentioned before the sort of the coloring the lines thing. Here it makes a little more sense for me to look at what it looks like with the lines are colored, because it's telling me, hey, this end you can't connect there, this end you can't connect there, which is a thing that maybe isn't as quite as clear once you've got a bunch of the grid filled in like this. So that is a good thing to bear in mind. Okay, but I am mostly filibustering now. Looking for... Okay, so this is a slightly weird one. I can't do this 2 out of 3 for this cell. If I do this 2 out of 3, then look what happens. This is a corner, so it goes down there, and then this comes over like that, and now I've created a mini loop. So there's actually, I can't do that 2 out of 3. So in other words, it's not possible, is a different way to say it. It's not possible that this loop doesn't connect up. If this loop doesn't connect up, then we run into a big issue, which is that we immediately create a mini loop. And now that does have the bonus that now this cell is now sitting at a dead end. So that cell is shaded. And we can do that piece of the corner, that piece of the corner. This 2 is now finished. That's the cell that's shaded. So this extends through here and extends through here. Okay, now here's where I can actually use the coloring to tell me these 2 can't connect, so therefore they come out like this. This still can't connect up, so therefore it comes out over there. And now this cell, and this is the 2 out of 3 thing again, this thing can't connect left and right, because if this connects left and right, I've closed the loop. So one of the 2 directions it goes is definitely up. And so you can fill that in, which lets me finish that 3, like that. And so now we've got a corridor and a corner. That's a corner as well. This is now, because these 2 can't connect, this needs to go up, and this needs to go up. And now this is a corner, and there we go. And that is a Yajilin. I'm sure there will be plenty more Yajilin in this series, because Yajilin are Yajilin are one of the more common types of puzzle that you'll see in various pencil puzzle places. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you gave it a shot, and look forward to more loop-esque puzzles here on Invitation to Puzzles. But thanks for watching. Bye for now.